Correspondent Abdul Lawal has more updates on the World Press Freedom Day in this next report.
The United Nations General Assembly declared the 3rd of May as the World Press Freedom Day in the year 1991, after recommendation at the 26th General Conference session of UNESCO. Hailed as the fourth pillar of democracy, members of the press have always risked their reputations and lives for the truth behind events. A report by Article 19, an organization that defends free expression and information, estimate that in 2020 alone, at least 51 crimes were committed against 60 journalists in Nigeria. And yet, despite such persecution, many believe the press has been compromised and is no longer fair in its coverage, instead pandering to the fancies of the highest bidder. Perhaps this was what led to changes made to the broadcast code by the National Broadcasting Commission, which has so far resulted in fines being handed out to media outlets deemed to have carried content biased or inimical to the national interest. In a country with such diverse ethnic and political interests, it is also hard to thread the line between being fair reportage and what may be deemed as hate speech. It bestows on Nigerian journalists the added task of self-censorship, determining what is within the line of duty to report and what may be deemed a personal opinion against the interest of a particular group or groups. President Muhammadu Buhari, in a statement to mark the day, recommits the freedom of the press and urged media professionals to wield freedom responsibly without licentiousness. The president notes that freedom of the press is an irreducible minimum in a democracy that would flourish, but adds that freedom must be used responsibly. I spoke to Victor Senagbenson, a broadcast journalist who narrates his ordeal in the course of carrying out his duties.
When a chief executive of an agency of the federal government retired, he reached his mandatory age to leave office, but he refused to leave office. Instead of leaving office, I'm talking of in this administration, instead of leaving office, he began to, as we say in this climate, press buttons to extend his stay in office. I did a report. At the panel, one question I cannot forget, I was asked, why did you do that? I said, there are rules and there are laws. People who work in a system work because one day they feel that they will also rise through the rank and grow. One of the women in the panel, I can't forget her, she said, we know what you are saying is true, but why should you be the one to say it? And that is why Nigeria is in a parlor state today.
Between self-censorship to external censorship, one begins to ask, is the press truly free?
Because of the return to democratic mode of governance in 1999, journalists now have the liberty to practice their craft a little bit at liberty, different from what used to be the case in terms of while we were in the military regime of old.
There is a lot of editorial influence when it comes to press freedom. A lot of people have to consider one or two things before they are able to publish their stories, which is entirely not the way it's meant to be.
And while traditional journalists struggle with this moral burden, a new brand of journalism, citizen journalism, is making waves. Enabled and driven by social media, it is the collaborative media that provides an alternative and activist form of news gathering and reporting outside mainstream media institutions. And it is gaining prominence because people seek alternative sources of information as the civic space continues to shrink. The new or subsisting threat to journalism in Nigeria can largely be surmounted by following the basic code like accountability, credibility, objectivity, and fairness. Habida Lawal, TVC News, Abuja.